On a warm evening in late summer, a young woman finished getting ready in her apartment. Nothing about the night felt unusual. She sent a text to a friend. She locked her door. She walked out carrying only her keys and her purse. She told someone she'd be back soon. She never was. At first, no one panicked. Adults miss plans all the time. Phones die, schedules change. But by the next morning, concern had turned into fear. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her workplace hadn't heard from her. Friends started calling police. Within hours, officers were searching. Her car was found later that day. It was parked neatly, in a public area, not hidden, not damaged. The doors were locked. The interior was clean. No blood, no struggle, no broken glass. The keys were gone. To investigators, this was troubling. Abductions rarely look this clean. Violence leaves chaos, mistakes. This scene had none. Which raised the first question. Was this even a crime? Police explored every possibility. A voluntary disappearance, a mental health episode, a secret relationship. But there was no history of instability. No packed bags, no withdrawals, no goodbye messages. She had simply vanished. Search teams flooded the area. Canines, helicopters, volunteers. They searched woods, water, abandoned buildings. Posters went up. Media coverage intensified. And slowly, something familiar happened. Leads dried up. Witnesses contradicted each other. Tips went nowhere. Hope faded. After months with no progress, the case slipped into that quiet category investigators dread. Cold. Years later, everything changed. Police received a tip about a man already known to them. Someone said he had been drinking and talking, claiming he knew what happened. When questioned, he denied everything at first. Then he hesitated. Then, under pressure, he talked. He described an argument, a moment of rage, an accident. He claimed he panicked, said he disposed of the body. Investigators were stunned. He knew details that were never released publicly. That should have been impossible to know. After hours of interrogation, he confessed. The case was suddenly alive again. But not everyone celebrated. Some investigators felt uneasy. The confession timeline didn't align with cell data. He described wounds that didn't make medical sense. He changed details when challenged. Most concerning, search teams followed his directions and found nothing. No body, no physical evidence, no trace. But confessions are powerful. Juries believe them. Courts rely on them. And without an alternative suspect, the case moved forward. The public believed justice had been done. The family believed it was over. But the truth hadn't surfaced yet. Decades passed. Technology advanced. DNA analysis evolved from science fiction into standard practice. And one day, an investigator reopened an old evidence box. Inside were items once considered useless. Fibers, trace material, clothing fragments. Back then, they meant nothing. Now, they meant everything. When testing was finally conducted, the results stunned everyone. The DNA did not belong to the man who confessed, not even remotely. The case cracked open. The DNA matched someone else, someone familiar, someone who had been interviewed early on, who had participated in searches, who had spoken with the family, someone trusted. The realization hit like a shockwave. The real perpetrator had been there the whole time, helping, watching, listening. The man in prison? He was innocent. When confronted, the true suspect didn't flee. He didn't argue. He went silent. Eventually, he confessed. Not emotionally, not dramatically. Calmly, he described an impulsive act, a brief window of opportunity, a calculated cover-up. He inserted himself into the investigation, a classic tactic, and it worked for years. The wrongfully convicted man was released, but freedom came too late. Years had been stolen, family connections severed, life permanently altered. The victim's family faced a new kind of grief. They had believed the story they were told, and now they had to relearn everything. Trust shattered. This case forced investigators to confront an uncomfortable truth. How many other cases are like this? How many confessions were coerced? How many assumptions went unchecked? How many truths are sitting in boxes, waiting? The evidence was always there. The technology just hadn't caught up. True crime isn't always about mystery. Sometimes it's about certainty. The danger of it. Because once a case is labeled solved, people stop looking. And sometimes, the most unbelievable twist in true crime history is that the truth never disappeared. It was simply ignored. Until now. Most emergency calls follow a pattern. Someone is scared, someone is in danger, someone is asking for help. But one night, a call came in that broke every rule. The woman on the line sounded calm, clear, controlled. She gave her name, her address, and then she said something no dispatcher was prepared to hear. She wasn't calling because she was in danger. She was calling because she had already done something terrible, and what she confessed to would unravel one of the most disturbing twists in true crime history. From the outside, her life looked ordinary. Steady job, quiet neighborhood, no criminal record, no history of violence. Friends described her as polite, reserved, the kind of person you wouldn't notice unless you were looking for her. There were no warning signs, no dramatic changes, no public breakdowns, no trail of chaos. Which is why, when the call came in just after midnight, it immediately stood out. The dispatcher answered like any other night. And then the woman spoke. She said her full name. She confirmed her address. She spoke slowly, almost rehearsed. Then she said, "I need to report a death." The dispatcher asked the obvious question. "Is the person with you right now?" "Yes," she replied. "Are they injured?" A pause. "No," she said. "They're dead." The room went quiet. Dispatchers are trained for panic, for screaming, for chaos. This was none of that. Then the woman added something chilling. "I killed them." The dispatcher followed protocol. She asked if anyone else was in danger. "No." Asked if there were weapons present. "Yes." Asked where the body was. "In my house." The woman never raised her voice, never cried, never hesitated. She explained that she had been living with the victim, that there had been an argument, that she had waited until they were asleep. She gave details. Too many details. Enough to convince the dispatcher this was real. Police were sent immediately. When officers arrived, they expected chaos. Instead, they found order. The front door was unlocked. Lights were on. The house was clean. The woman was sitting at the kitchen table, hands folded, face blank. She stood when officers entered. "I'm ready," she said. She led them down the hallway. And that's when everything stopped making sense. The body was exactly where she said it would be. But something was wrong. There were no defensive wounds, no signs of a struggle, no blood spatter consistent with violence. Medical responders examined the scene. Time of death didn't align with her story. Cause of death was unclear. And then came the first shock. Preliminary examination suggested the victim had been dead before the woman claimed she killed them. Hours before, possibly longer. During questioning, the woman never changed her story. She insisted she was responsible, but every detail investigators checked collapsed under scrutiny. Phone records placed her away from the house during the estimated time of death. Surveillance footage supported that. Forensics showed no trace of her DNA where it should have been. Yet she continued to confess, over and over, even when presented with proof she couldn't have done it. Investigators considered everything: mental illness, delusion, guilt. Then they looked deeper into the relationship. What they uncovered changed everything. The victim had been controlling, abusive, isolating. Neighbors had heard arguments, friends noticed changes, but no one intervened. The woman had lived in constant fear, and that fear had reshaped her reality. Autopsy results finally came back. The victim hadn't been murdered. They had died of natural causes, a sudden, undiagnosed medical event. They collapsed while alone. No foul play, no homicide, no crime, except for one thing. The woman hadn't killed anyone, but she believed she deserved to be punished. Years of psychological abuse had convinced her that everything was her fault, even death. She confessed because she thought the police would finally stop the fear. She thought prison would be safer than her own mind. She was not charged with murder, but she was not free. She was placed into psychiatric care. The case closed quietly. No headlines, no sensational coverage. But those who worked it never forgot. Because the most unbelievable twist wasn't the confession. It was this. The victim called the police and confessed, even though no crime had been committed.